transformation. Today we will explore how businesses are undergoing a profound shift in their operations fueled by the power of digitization. We'll try to understand the role of data analytics powered by AI, unlocking new insights and enabling data-driven decision-making. Let's uncover the transformative power of digitization, the synergy between AI and data analytics, and the ways in which AI implementation revolutionizes operations, driving businesses towards greater efficiency and success. Before we start, I'd like to start with a little bit of a fun exercise. So in one word, how can we describe the role of AI in the context of digital transformation? And then by the end of the panel, we'll revisit our words and see if we changed our mind based on new insights that we have gained. So, George, your word?
I see AI as a co-pilot.
Co-pilot.
Unicorn.
Unicorn.
You can run differently business activities than the others.
Okay, so all positive, I think. All of you have mentioned positive words. Okay, so each one of us approaches digital transformation uniquely. Each one of us has their own pace, their own definition, their own experiences within this journey. In your perspective and in your words, how do you describe digital transformation?
Digital transformation, for me, is primarily about what the term coined quite a few years ago called digitalization, which is primarily usage of digital technologies to automate as much as possible processes that have been done previously, either in a manual way or other ways.
Gaurav, do you agree?
So before we talk about digitalization, I think that is another term that we should know, which is digitization, where we are converting the analog into digital, like converting from images, like paper-based to the images using OCR technologies. So digitization is enabling us to start on digitalization journey, and that will help us in getting into the automation space, where we can use digital technologies and using the power of machine learning AI, and then building some automation. So to me, that's a process to work towards digitalization.
Yes, when it comes to the digital transformation, I think that it's, we can define it as use of technology, the digital technologies basically, to run significantly differently operation than the others, which cannot be achieved with the non-digital manner. So the digital it will be as a backbone of their operation, of their processes there, to reach this level. And at the same time, I think that's an opportunity to have not only running the business, you can run multiple businesses and multiple business activities utilizing the digital technologies nowadays.
So if we can name three key factors to the success of the digital transformation journey, because it's a journey, it doesn't just happen overnight, right? How can we advise on three key factors that will support this journey? Would you like to start?
Well, there's several important factors that I think are key to digital transformation. One is actually the reorganization of processes within organization itself. Why is that important? Because if you have a manual mess or a manual paper mess and you just automate it, you just have a faster mess. So at the end of the day, every time you do digital transformation, you have to step back and analyze what kind of simplifications you can actually do on existing processes that exist in business. The second element that I think is extremely important that we always forget, digital transformation gets done with people. So the user interface or the user experience, whether it's the end customer or the user within the business, needs to be addressed. Otherwise, there's a counter revolution against that digital transformation. And the last element, which is one that I've worked for a little bit over 25 years, is the importance of security and trust. Only when you trust the systems that you use between parties or even between organizations can actually digital transformation go ahead and be done in a much faster way than it's been done today, whether it's between organizations, between governments, individuals, point to point.
Mr. Ali, how
Yes,
is government experience?
Yeah, with the government experience, and even also in generic way, that there is a multiple factors there. We call it as internal factors. And it is not only looking for the digital itself, which is basically a narrow angle. We have to look at for the 360 way. We have a 4-dimensional factors, starting with the people and organization. The organization, they have to decide whether they will utilize the digital technology as an approach, as a practice, or to be embedded in their strategy. Nowadays, some of the organizations, they embed the digital transformation in their business strategy. So they become as a digital business strategy, which is basically they enable their businesses through the digital technologies itself. They have to accept the changes that's happening there in the technology. So they have to have a change management practice there, since you know that the technology is keep changing. So they have to adapt and readapt with these changes. Along with the organization itself, your people is one of the main factors in this journey. A well-trained people, the people that they should use the technology. Imagine that you spend a lot of monies there and you have a good strategy, but your people is not ready to use these kind of technologies. So the focus in this dimension, it has to be with the organization and with the people of the organization as well. And this is one of the, let's say that the dimension of the 4 dimensions factors. The second factor, or the second dimension, is the technology and data. You have to use the proper technology that it's already available. And this is another journey, which technology is being used and whether it will benefit the organization or not. And streaming of that data, we have something they call it a GIGO, a garbage in, you will get a garbage out, while if you good feed data, you will good get the outputs there. So technology and data, it's another factor you have there. The processes, as George, he mentioned that it needs to be redefined again and redesign it in a proper way in order to embed it with the technology itself. So the processes and stream value, it's another factor. And finally, I think that the 4th factor is the supplier and the partners, because you cannot run any such approach without having the support from the third party, the technology provider and the partners who they implement the digital technology in your organization. So these are the factors that is already that I feel that it is you know, that having the success factors of having a good and success digital transformation approach.
Thanks. So I think like a lot of things you both have covered, but few things like maybe it may be repetition, but talent management, like upskilling of your existing workforce. So you have to work with your existing people so that they understand that they are not going to lose their job. Because let's say, for example, you build a solution for a plant operator to be using it, and if they are not on board while the development is happening, they will be hesitant in using that tool, whatever good you have built, right? So that is one of the things which is very critical. And as you mentioned about data quality and also like data availability, right? Data quality is one, then availability of the right data. So let's say, for example, if you have to predict a failure of a machine, but if you don't have enough past historical data of so you cannot predict the failure of that machine. So data availability and obviously like scaling is another aspect of it. Like if you don't have a plan, like you talked about strategy, so if you don't have the right strategy, if you don't have the right goal in mind, then no matter what you build, that will be just put on the shelf and no one will be actually using it. So just wanted to add a couple of points there.
Besides what my colleague says, like the talent management, it's one of the main factors. Nowadays, The digital transformation people, they say that it's not about the technology, it's about the people itself. You transfer the people from the normal way of working to a digital manner working. Workforce.
So I think the three buckets that we can talk about is people, technology, and then data. I want to take a moment to talk about some technologies. George, I think this question would be for you. There's a lot of debate on the use of generative AI, ChatGPT, taking all the spotlight at the moment. And these debates has a lot of people are taking different stands. So government, entities, organization, what's right, what's wrong, what's your stand in this debate, and how can we consider the ethical implications that come with it?
Well, there's a lot of questions, but I'll try to address all of them one by one. First one is to understand that ChatGPT is several elements. One, it's data. In this case, the data is up to 2019, 2020 of the internet. So this was the data that was actually used to train ChatGPT. That's number one. Number two, ChatGPT is a user interface. So it's a user interface that gained very quick adoption with people because instead of just going to the Google search, getting lots of ads and lots of things that don't necessarily answer the question that person we're trying to ask a system, it gets to the point very quickly. You don't get distraction. I do consider ChatGPT a good prototype for things to come. So let's take the entire data of the internet. We train ChatGPT. So it's only good for the data that is available on the internet. So now let's take the average organization that we have here today, whether it's oil and gas, government, private industry, and you take the entire documents and data that is available on that organization, you feed it to the ChatGPT, but it's a private ChatGPT. It's not one that is available through the internet. And what that really means, and you make this ChatGPT available to every employee in the organization. What does that really mean? That really means that today you can increase the productivity of that organization in substantial ways. So what you have done is you have established a collective intelligence of past processes and data that people would not be able to find inside the organization, and you have made it available to everybody. So that means whether you happen to be the CEO or the secretary or even the cleaner for that matter, you changing the productivity levels that these individuals can have within the organization. Because the interface is very easy and intuitive, any user can get access to it. And that makes it very unique. So this is one of the reasons why the adoption of ChatGPT has been much higher than other technologies. For example, I've been in blockchain for 7 years. It's been over 12 to 14 years. Today, if you go on Google and you search for blockchain, you probably find, let's say, 8 billion entries. ChatGPT has been with us for 3 to 6 months, let's say 3 months. You'll have double the number of entries. So that means there has been a rapid adoption of that technology. So that there's been a grassroots, which is every individual has found something that can help them. And I think that is very important. It means it's focusing not just on the data and the quality of the data, but also on the user interface by making it very simple.
Okay, so the other bucket that we will move on to, and I think Mr.
Yeah, allow
Ali-
me just to add one point with
Sure.
the ChatGPT. We have to balance basically between the opportunities and the demand in order to get the value. Some of the organization, maybe the ChatGPT, they consider as a demanded technology to do a proper, that operation, which will definitely will gain the value of it. But for those people who didn't find that the demanded technologies can be applied in their businesses, they can consider it as an opportunity to leverage their operation, to leverage their, processes there. So I think that this is one of the opportunities that the people they can capture there in their operation.
In generative AI, I just wanted to mention, I know ChatGPT is the hot topic these days, but there is also something called as application by DALL-E, D-A-L-L-E, where you can provide the text and it can create an image for you, right? So it can write stories, it can compose music. So yeah, obviously, you can look at it as how it can enable to do things faster and better, but at the same time, you have to also consider the ethical and privacy issues to that. But yeah, generative AI, ChatGPT and DALL-E are two very popular applications these days. So.
Okay, so we will move on to the next bucket, and it is something that Mr. Ali has spoken about, the human-centric approach. One thing with the rise of automation and digital transformation is a fear amongst employees, a fear that these changes may affect their current roles. And I think this is a question that repeats itself over and over, but how can we reassure them? How can we alleviate these concerns?
Yes. As we've mentioned in the definition that the terms of the definition of the digital transformation is to use the technology to use or to have a significantly differently operation than the others. And it's an opportunity to run multiple businesses at the same time using the digital technologies. However, and this is people, they can see that there is a lot of jobs there. The organization, they try to automate it there and to rely on the digital technologies itself. And the problem is with this one, the people, they may lose their jobs during this period. So this is the opportunity for the organizations to think for having a different plans there. So they don't neglect these people. They can think about diversification in their strategies to have other business opportunities and utilize this workforce itself to run other jobs there, while they are moving more with their transformation approach.
Yeah. So main thing, when we're talking about the adoption here, right? When we consider digital technologies, roughly there are lot of studies that you might have heard about the success and failure of the projects. One of the studies says about 12% of the applications that you build using digital technologies, whether it is AI or machine learning or cloud or anything, 12% of applications get into production and get into some kind of an ROI. That means most of the application, 88% of the projects fail. Now, it failed not because of technology, it's because of adoption. And the key component there is you have to cultivate the culture of innovation within your company. That is number one. Number two, you have to also consider fail fast culture, where when you are implementing or building any solution, don't take up a big project. Take a small chunk of project, do multiple projects at the same time instead of just spending time and money on one project. Take 3, 4, 5 projects which are very small, 12 weeks, 16 weeks type of engagement, and try to see what kind of value it can generate. And another important thing is if benchmarking, if you are today you are doing a prediction of, let's say, failure of a machine or predicting churn of a customer. If you are able to do it with 50%, 60% accuracy, if your AI model gives you accuracy of 70% or 10%, 5% more over what you're currently doing, implement it, deploy it. Don't wait to be 100%. Because when we have seen many times when we work with the clients, today let's say they are doing 60% accurately, they're predicting something. When you talk about AI, they would like to have 100%, right? So those things we have to be very careful about, where we have to onboard actual users of your application, and at the same time data governance. And let's say if you would like to have a prediction within seconds or within minutes, then you should have the right infrastructure. If you don't have the right infrastructure, then no matter what you do will be failed. So you have to define your KPIs well ahead of time, onboard your people while you are building it, so that the deployment will be much easier for you as you go forward.
I like that you used cultivate the culture of innovation rather than upskilling or reskilling current employees. And you're right, it is a culture that needs to be embedded from the very beginning. Would you? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add a few things that I think are important here. When we introduce technology, we disrupt an existing environment by changing the way that environment works. But first thing, when we mention the word artificial intelligence, it's not artificial and it's also not intelligence, but it's okay, it's a term. It's a mathematical approximation based on data to automate certain tasks or activities. So some people will be redisplaced to do other jobs. That's just the reality. But I still remain to think that artificial intelligence, as we know it, it's primarily a co-pilot. And it's because it is a statistical model. It depends on the job that you do, the human element will play a different role. Let me explain in very simple terms. If you're trading stocks, and your mathematical artificial intelligence model is 85% correct, you're winning because you make money. If, however, artificial intelligence is driving autonomous cars and you're 99% accurate, it's still not good enough, or you're flying a plane because you end up killing, or you're doing operation, you end up killing people. So that means there has to be always a human element that has priority and decision-making over any artificial intelligence that actually takes place. So this is where I believe that artificial intelligence as a technology will always remain a co-pilot. Yes, it can do jobs faster, no question, but in critical activities, somebody has to be responsible, and that responsibility will never end up being in artificial intelligence itself.
Amazing.
Which is again the data itself.
I love the term that you're using. It's a co-pilot. I want to go to the third bucket, which is data, and I think, Gaurav, this is your bread and butter. But the question here is, there's a lot of fear when it comes to data sharing, data privacy, security, inaccuracy. How do we leverage data for a better digital transformation while still addressing all of those concerns?
So for any implementation of any digital technologies, I'll talk about AI in particular here. Data is the key element, as we all agree, right? And Mr. Ali mentioned about garbage in and garbage out, 100% correct, right? So we have to also have variety of data. That is also very true. Now, if we are able to generate or create an AI application that leverage data for helping us to make a right decision, I think that is where we have to be at, right? So data is the critical component, but again, you have to understand about the data availability, data governance, then data security. That's very important. How you are saving data, and then when you talk about data, when you're building an application, you have to also make sure that it is not encroaching anyone's privacy, right? You have to also consider the ethical use of the right data, so that you are not disrupting anyone's privacy over there. Also, when you're building an application, you have to be very careful. You're not including any biases in that data, right? So that your application should, say for example, when you're hiring, let's say if you're building an application for an HR, you don't want to consider gender or religion or location or visa status, etc. It should be purely based on the talent. So you have to eliminate a lot of things that is considered as a personal identifiable information, so that you can build the right application.
George, would you like to add to this?
I do believe that AI is always going to be as good as the data that you feed to it. So in data, there is two components that are important. One is I call data quality, and the other one is I call data density, which is the amount of data. So the more data quality that you have, the better amount of data that you have, the predictive model of AI will be better. Does it mean that this will necessarily generate a good AI model? No. There's some cases where AI is just not the right tool. And this is why anytime you do a trained model, you need to have humans that actually verify that the trained model is actually providing the right answers. And this is actually a new job that has been created known as micro-tasking, which, for example, the model predicted this picture is a cat. So there's some person sitting in some third world country which gets paid 5 cents and says, yeah, the model predicted a cat, and says, yes, it's really a cat. And that enables the model to actually be more accurate and better in whatever service that it delivers.
So when we are designing or developing an AI application, we should think about the reason why we're designing and developing. So it's not for the sake of developing, right?
Well, you need to have a reason. What are you trying to better? And I always find this very important because today, one of the key definitions I always look, because we have a lot of startups, especially in the region here. There's a few startups in artificial intelligence outside. Yesterday I just met some that were in charge of tech park. Startups are trying to create unicorns, which is the modern definition of a billionaire, something that actually helps. And my definition is very simple, comes from a good friend that says, today's definition of a modern billionaire is somebody that makes a solution that actually helps 1 billion people. So when you're trying to use AI, how can you use AI in a practical way to help this? Maybe it's in agriculture, agri-tech. So there's a lot of very amazing opportunities that have been done and are already live in places like India, and some are being redeployed in other places of the planet where you also have 1 billion people like Africa as well.
Yes, I agree with you. We have to define the value itself, focus on a value on why we need to implement the AI. It's the sake of only use the technology or to gain certain benefits, leveraging the operation of the organizations, having more profits there, having the principle of do more with less as well. So I agree with you on this.
So we're running short on time, so unfortunately I only have time for one more question. And I think my next question would be regarding the ethical implications, because it's a core fear when it comes to applying AI. And there's a term that we like to use, which is the responsible use of AI. How can we provide that to entities? How can we assure them that there is an ethical way to do that?
Let me actually maybe define it in a different way. Rather than just go to straight the term ethical, one of the things that we've been applying AI to is what we call smart cities. So smart cities, we have lots of sensors. The sensors generate data, and then this data is used to optimize things like traffic, movement of people, etc. This is what we call traditional AI, and this creates a smart city. But if you create a new generation of smart city, about 2 years ago we coined the term called conscientious city, which is just not a city that is smart, but is a city that is trying to serve the citizens and what they think is important to them. So that means it's kind of AI, but AI with a conscience, with a purpose. So when we start mixing AI with a proper human service purpose, we create something that is actually better. But this has to be driven by humans, not by AI itself.
Yeah. See, every new technology, whenever there is a disruption, like when internet was kind of invented in the 90s, and then now it is about AI, and then tomorrow it will be something else, right? There is always pros and cons of any technology that you take. When you talk about ethical use of AI, like as I mentioned earlier about removing the biases, one of the key things, right? So that is something which is very important. Like you can have false negative, false positive. You can, hackers can just get into your system, and then if they tweak a little bit, like we're going to give you an example of a cat and a dog, right? So if you just distort by like 1 pixel, and then dog can become something else, right? So we have to be very careful about usage of AI in a right way, where we are able to protect the human mankind. We have to make sure that it is usable for people. Like even ChatGPT, we were talking earlier, there is good use of it. At the same time, people are abusing it, right? They are creating more and more viruses, malware. So there are obviously pros and cons of any new technology. We just have to be a little bit careful, and then we have to remove all the biases and use more explainable AI models instead of just using the black box, and we have to be very careful with that.
Yes, I think that maybe we have two types of, targeted people, managed people and unmanaged people. People, they want to utilize the AI to benefit their organization, and you have other people, they want to harm the people there. So the role of the cybersecurity, privacy, deal with the data leakage, protection, and such operation, I think that it is mandatory to be applied in order to protect their environments from this unmanaged people to, that harm them, or to stop harming them from utilizing the AI in their organization.
Okay, so with the just few seconds left, we will revisit our words that we used in the very beginning. Do you think that your perspectives have changed within the conversation, or do you stick to them?
Well, AI has been with us actually for 30 or 40 years. I do believe that the digital transformation and usage of technology is actually accelerating. So the future actually looks bright because of availability of very cheap computing, cheap storage, and cheap connectivity.
I would like to stick to the term which I use, unicorn, because I would like to see the positive side of it, right? Like, but there will be negative side of any technology, anything about it. But when we talk about AI, digital transformation, digital technologies, there are a lot of unicorns that are created who are adopting this technology. So, yeah, I mean, like, I really still support to be there.
I think that we have to think globally and act locally. AI, it's one of the global technologies that's already available, and it's a good to capture the benefits and to gain the opportunities from this technology itself.
All right, thank you all for being with us today, and I hope we enjoy.